Hello and welcome to our monthly program with the European Policy Center. Today we focus on the European sanctions against Russia. And to discuss on this, I've got the pleasure to welcome Paul Ivan, policy analyst at the European Policy Center. Hello. And welcome. So last week, Russia urged the EU to lift sanctions against Moscow. However, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel said the sanction cannot be lifted under this current situation. And the EU also added some names on the sanctions list, 13 Ukrainian separatist names and 5 organizations. But it doesn't seem that the EU will go further listing these names. Why?
Well, these names will be listed. At the same time, we have to understand the decision regarding sanctions are taken by the 28 member states of the European Union. So there needs to be an agreement between all the EU members. At this moment, this is the level of agreement. It is, let's say, a lowest common denominator, but this is what we have. At the same time, the fact, and you mentioned that Russia has asked for sanctions to be lifted, shows that the sanctions do have effect and they do have an impact on the Russian economy. So Russia wants them lifted, but it's not ready to and take the measures that would lead to this lifting of the sanctions.
And talking about the economic impact, actually, so Russia could lose more than 100 billion euros, but Russian Deputy Foreign Minister just warned last week that the sanction could be even a big loss for the European Union. So the impact could reach about 40 billion euros in 2014 and 50 billion in 2015. So in time of crisis, do you think the EU could really manage this loss?
Well, the figures apply more, I think, to the Russian side. What we see in the case of the EU, the losses are not as big. Obviously, there are costs, and all economic sanctions do have some costs. At the same time, the breach of international law in the case of Ukraine is so serious that the EU had to act. The EU will not intervene militarily in Ukraine, but this is one of the strongest tools that the EU has and that it has to use.
So are we sure the EU will not intervene militarily, even if the situation becomes worse?
Well, the way the situation looks now, it will not intervene. There's no legal obligation to intervene militarily, and it would not be the EU in any case. But Ukraine is not a member of NATO, so there's no legal obligations to intervene militarily, and nobody really wants to do that. I mean, Russia is a big military power, and the efforts are done on the diplomatic front, using also the sanctions tool.
But should the EU deny Russian threats then? Because you said recently that Russia could even lose more in this situation than the European Union. So all the Russian threats doesn't really bother.
I mean, sure, the part of the political game. Russia will lose hundreds of billions. It also loses quite a lot by the fact that the price of oil is going down. So that's very visible, this effect on the Russian economy. Obviously, Russia doesn't like that, would like the sanctions to be lifted, but it does not. It still sends troops into eastern Ukraine and still supports the separatists. So as long as we don't see a change in that policy, as long as we don't see a return to the status quo ante, to the previous situation, the EU cannot really lift the sanctions. I mean, there are no reasons to lift the sanctions.
And these European countries who are suffering the most economically, such as, for example, last week, Italy said that it could have a loss of 4 billion euros, in 2 years. So this the sanction could affect for 4 billion euros the country. And can we expect then that some EU countries can just be together and react directly towards Russia?
Well, the policy, the European one, is taken by all the 28 member states. Now, as a percentage, it is mostly, let's say, the Baltic states. There are other countries which, as a percentage, depend more on trade, for example, on foodstuff with Russia. Again, there are clearly losses, and there are some companies or farmers which are losing more. This is due to the Russian measures the Russian measures of the embargo. It's not, let's say, a decision of the EU. There should be mechanism, and there are already some mechanisms implemented to try to help some of these companies. More should be done, but clearly, economic sanctions also have costs for the party that imposes them. It is part of the game.
Mm-hmm. So Jean-Claude Juncker, the president of the European Commission, said the Russia-Ukraine crisis left Europe with two options: go to war against Russia or impose economic sanctions. So now, according to you, what do you expect by the end of the year from the EU and Russia perspective?
I mean, we don't see a real change in the situation there in eastern Ukraine. So I expect the crisis actually to continue, and both parties to lose funds. And I expect the EU to keep this level of sanctions, at least for the time being. Russia does not seem ready to change its position. Then sanctions are usually a tool that takes time in order to work. We see some of the first effects. We see that it is affecting the Russian economy. Probably next year the pressure will be even higher on the Russian economy, and maybe we might see a change there. But we're still clearly not there.
Thank you, Mr. Ivan, for coming to our studio. And thank you for following us. Bye. See you next time.